Hello, everybody. How are you feeling? I normally demand a Mexican wave. Thank you for starting that. That was very good. Thanks very much for coming along. I have minus 2 minutes apparently to speak. I have about 15 minutes with you today, and I wanted to share a few thoughts with you on this relationship between creativity and technology. So the title of this presentation is The Symbiosis of Creative Thinking, Creative Minds, and Technology. And I wanted to, I've been having some just incredible conversations with people since arriving here, and also if any of you were in Madeira, about how we use the technology at our disposal to create, and what does it mean to be creative with this technology. Well, welcome. I haven't started the dad jokes yet, so it's perfect timing to sit down. So, but I will. One of my roles is I consult on future and emerging technology, and I work a lot on people entering industries and on career development, and I look at the applications for multiple technologies in complex scenarios. I also direct films. But one of the things that I do is I run the Creativity Conference, which is an event exploring just creativity, just the essence of it. And because I'm running that event, I get asked what creativity is, and I'm going to give you my working definition. But before I do, I want to do a little experiment with you that I think illustrates a point that I want to make. So just take a moment and just breathe in and breathe out. Now I have a question for you. Why did you do that? Not everyone did. I can see through the lights there. But those of you who did felt compelled by the words that I spoke to take action. And you took the action that you understood I was requesting. You made a value judgment about what I was asking you to do. Do I agree with it? Do I approve of it? Am I in alignment with it? And then you allowed me to direct your action. One of the powerful things about language as a communicator and as a creative is that it's necessary for you to experience in your imagination what you hear in language in order for you to receive the words. So if I say earlier, I had lunch, you now have to think about the concept of eating lunch, concept of food, probably restaurants. You're imagining me in a scenario. You have to experience in your imagination the meanings, the significances of the words that you hear. This makes language a superpower, because by framing your ideas in just the right way, you change the makeup, the brains, the minds of your listeners in ways that they have absolutely no power to resist. This is an extraordinary power. So when you say to somebody, I love you, I'm afraid, I need you, this world would be worse without you. Even if you don't think those words are aimed at you, you still feel the call of them, right? You still feel like, yes. And so, I will live, I will participate, I want to get involved in life because you've been shown that you matter, even if you only matter to one person. And I would argue that every technology we create, every tool that we produce, every experience, whether it's any XR, whatever you want, or even RR, sometimes we work with real reality too. Whatever experience you're creating is a way of reaching out to a human being and showing them that participating in life, showing them that being here, showing them that what they do and the fact that they're here, showing them that this matters. Now, we tend to think about, everyone's heard about the dopamine cycle, right? Like you create curiosity, and then you have to fulfill that curiosity. And if you look at gamifying tasks, gamifying experiences, gamifying education or work, we found that people can obsess and engage more and participate more. And one of the ways that this is used against us is to capture our attention. Why is our attention being captured? Most of the time it's for marketing. Most of the time it's because your attention is the commodity. But what if you were capturing attention in order to make the world a better place? Or how about a crazy idea? What if your attention was being captured by a technology in order that you become a better person? What if all this medical data, Amy Peck mentioned previously that eye tracking, this is medical data. What if all that data was fed back? You know, some biofeedback device was showing you how to be happier and healthier and more able, and therefore more able to impact the world. We've got the tools. The question is, why are we using them the way that we're using them? And ultimately, everything we create is rooted in a why. So I'm kind of giving you my conclusions before we get there, so I want to back up a couple of steps. I said I would give you my definition for creativity. I think creativity is any intentional decision. Because when you make intentional decisions, you're not out of control. You're not just witnessing passively what happens. You are intending something. And the thing that you intend could be a thought. It could be just that you decide to spend time thinking about a thing. That's an action, right? Or it could be that you run a marathon. Or it could be that you bake a cake. Or whatever it is that you're doing, you are informing, you're influencing, you're changing future outcomes. And in that way, you're choosing to participate in the creation of the future. Isn't that amazing? It could be that you're painting a picture. You know, every time you create a piece of work that exists beyond the current moment, you're creating a time capsule. You could create a picture. We were talking about the other day about, what's that, The Scream. I always get the name of the painter wrong, but Edvard Munch, thank you. The Scream. If you've seen it once, anytime anybody mentions this painting to you, you get a momentary flashback to the way you felt when you saw it. You create a piece of work like that, it's like a message in a bottle. It's a time telephone for people you may never meet. They may be born after you die. This is powerful. So everything that you create is created via a medium. And the medium enables communication in particular ways. And what we hope is that you'll communicate not just information, not just facts, but wisdom. And this is one of the reasons that I think immersive technologies, XR, VR, AR, all of these technologies, biofeedback devices, haptic devices, they're powerful as a medium because they're experiential. You're not just witnessing something, you are experiencing it. Now, a lot of you might be familiar with the concept of mirror neurons, right? You watch somebody climb a tree, and when it's your turn to climb the tree, you know how to climb the tree. And the reason is because of mirror neurons. When it's time to lift your leg in that funny way to get it up onto the branch, you don't think this is when they lift their leg, therefore I should. What you think is, this is when I lift my leg, because you were experiencing it with them thanks to mirror neurons. So now we're able to have immersive experiences where we are literally, remotely, you could call it telepresence or just embodiment, an avatar. You're literally having an experience with somebody. You're sharing the experience. This is one of the aspects of immersive technology that makes it an empathy engine. Because we could be having a conversation next to a sound source, it's a spatial audio, there's music playing, and we might look at each other and gesture and say, hey, let's walk over here where it's quieter to have a conversation. This entire thing is virtual, but the experience isn't. Let's be clear. Yes, the manufacturing of the light and sound that's arriving at you, the haptic feedback devices if you've got them, all of that is virtualized. But the experience is real. This is incredibly powerful. So I would argue that choosing to make decisions, making intentional decisions, is much deeper than simply deciding on an outcome. That's managing resources. That's fulfilling a brief. I would say that making intentional decisions about some future outcome, something you're going to create, something you're going to do, is choosing to participate in life itself. It's choosing not to let life happen to you, but to really live now, in the moment. And again, we're working with technologies now that provide instant gratification. You want to create an environment in Unity or Unreal where there's a tree. Here's 5,000 tree models. that you can modify, and you just drop it in, now you've got a tree. But you still had to decide there was going to be a tree there. You still had to decide that you wanted people to experience it. Now, the title of this talk uses the word symbiosis, which implies that there are two separate things that come together. This is the old idea of alchemy, the idea that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, that you combine things in ways that produce something more. But I would argue that the word symbiosis implies that the component parts were separate to begin with. And we've got this idea of man-made, human-made technology versus nature. And I want to challenge that paradigm. Is it natural or unnatural? We are a product of nature. Our characteristics were pretty much set about 200,000 years ago. We haven't changed all that much as a species in that time, long before what we would call the industrial age, for example. So we have a nature, and that nature is the product of the wider nature, the wider life on Earth that we're a part of. And I would argue that the technologies we create are not unnatural, but you get to choose whether you create healthy or unhealthy things. Are you going to tell stories that help people to grow and become wiser? Or are you going to tell people stories that make them feel insecure and vulnerable and damaged? How are you going to use your understanding of the universality of the human condition and of our psyche? Are you going to use it to make people feel great and make them get out there and change the world? Or are you going to use that understanding to break them down a little bit so they're more persuadable? It's healthy or unhealthy. It's not natural or unnatural. All of it's natural. I wanted to mention briefly as well, I don't have a great deal of time, but I wanted to mention that we talk about effective use of technology. I have a lot of meetings with startups where we're looking at the application of a technology. And sometimes people use tools just because they can. Don't use immersive technology just because it's got the word immersive in the name. I was going to mention, I usually do this gag where I say I've got my notes on a piece of paper and it actually says must buy mushrooms. But actually, the paper has amazing battery life. Like you don't have to necessarily use the latest, greatest technology unless it in some way raises up what you're trying to achieve. So I think it's important to note that when we are developing a new technology, we have to think about the why. We have to think about what it's for. And at the root of that choice that you're making is your fundamental paradigm as a being, your outlook on life. Do you think that mathematics, music, and dance are the only truths of the universe? Do you think it matters that people connect with one another and collaborate? Or is it unimportant? Can people work alone? I was saying in a panel yesterday, when anyone says they work completely alone, I have this whole list of questions about what technique they used as a carpenter to make the chair that they're sitting on. It's very impressive. And they generated their own electricity. How did they do that? And the building that they're in that's giving them shelter while they focus on their work, when did they learn architecture to design blueprints for a building? Of course they didn't. Nobody works alone. Nobody's in a vacuum. Everybody is working as part of a wider system. The question is whether you want to participate in that wider system in a way that is healthy or unhealthy. Do you want to be positive or negative? I would argue that all human achievement is the product of a collaboration. I would argue that all technology is a medium for intention. So work out what your intention is, find out what your why is, and then find a way to communicate that, to convey that through the technology that you have. You have to know what it is that you're intending. Don't just do it because you can. There was a lovely story when crypto coins came out. There was I think it was a tea company, changed the name of their ticker on the New York Stock Exchange to have the word coin in it. And their sales, their price would tripled, quadrupled, quintupled. And in the end, the exchange had to block the sales and purchase of this stock because everyone was just buying anything with the word coin in it. So be intentional when you're working in this healthy symbiotic relationship with technology. And the last thing I wanted to mention is that I've been working on a set of theories to tell if you're a goodie or a baddie. And it's surprisingly difficult to know if you're a goodie or a baddie. I'll give you one of the principles I've found. I'm almost out of time. If you're killing people, there's a pretty good chance you're a baddie. I mean, it's not every time. Like, there are exceptions. It might be that there are times when it's okay. But if you find yourself killing people, just think for a moment, hang on a second, is it possible I might be a baddie? But at a wider level, and obviously saving lives is the flip side of that, but at a wider level, I've begun to notice a pattern I want to share with you. And that pattern is as follows. Things that tend to bring us together tend to be good. And things that separate us and push us apart tend to be bad. So when you're developing a new technology and you're focusing on what that's going to do on the world, ask yourself, is this going to help us bring us towards unity? I don't mean homogenizing. I don't mean stamping down how people should live. I mean people should be who they are. But are you creating tools that allow people to connect? Or are you creating tools that make people feel more separate? Ultimately, it's love or fear, and you get to choose. Thank you very much.